Hey everybody, how's it going today? How is everyone doing? Please let me know how the video and the audio is appearing. If we're not getting good video today, I may have to cancel this, but I thought I would just see. So I'm waiting for people to respond. I know it's kind of a little bit slow with the lag, but if you'll let me know if the video is looking decent or if it's kind of choppy because I'm not getting the best bandwidth today. Is clear? Good. How's the audio? Are the audio and the video syncing with each other? Tina or anybody else, please let me know so we'll know how it's looking and how it's sounding. Okay. I'll wait a minute or two for a response before we start talking. Good. That's good to know. All right. So this is a question and answer session. And is anybody else having echoing going on here? Might be because of the room, which has some wooden walls. I can't do anything about that unless I go knock some walls down, right? And I don't think that would be a good idea. But if anybody else is hearing it, let me know. But just to kind of explain, doing a question and answer session today. So let's explain what a question and answer session is. That means that you can ask questions in regards to astrology. Okay. But what it doesn't mean is that I'm going to answer questions about your particular chart, because basically, here's the reasoning why. It's not because I think that basically I'm not trying to go, I don't want to be nice with things like that. But really what it boils down to is just doing 2 or 3 planetary combinations and kind of trying to tell you about your life. It doesn't really work that way. Okay. Somebody's asking, what is the combination to become a photographer? There are probably several different combinations. One good thing that can be prominent with that would be the 10th Lord in Shatabishak Nakshatra, or perhaps the Atmakaraka in Shatabishak Nakshatra, or Shatabishak Nakshatra interacting with some career-oriented placements. Okay, let's see if anybody else has any questions at all. And don't worry about my eye. I forget which side it is. Was it this eye? Yeah, it's this eye. Allergy season, and I went to rub my eye the other day, and then I went and looked in the mirror, and actually my son told me that there was a problem with my eye, and I must have popped a blood vessel, but it's on the heel right now and doesn't hurt. It's just a thing to look at. So any other questions that anybody has, please let me know. Okay. In the meantime, I'm going to have a drink. So any astrology related questions that you may have. It's kind of quiet. I've only seen one question so far. Hello, Boeing 777er. A malefic being the Atmakaraka. Okay, I can say something about a malefic being the Atmakaraka. First of all, let's talk about malefics and benefics, and let's find a better word. Benefic and malefic, because it kind of makes it sound like you have these cosmic good guys and these cosmic bad guys, and it doesn't really work that way. Basically, a better phrase for it is Somya, which means gentle, and Krura, which means cruel, right? So whereas a gentle planet will go about doing something with a state of ease, a Krura planet creates more challenge with it. Some people like challenges though, so it doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad. What if the Atmakaraka is debilitated? Well, it depends on which area it's debilitated in, right? It may be debilitated in the Rashi chart, but maybe it's exalted in some other chart. If it's exalted in another chart, then the individual will can have good indications in that particular area of life. Debilitated in the Rashi chart, well, they may feel kind of low and depressed quite often, right? But that's just a generalization. Okay. What is the biggest development I have seen in astrology in the last 10 years? Not just in terms of the community, but in the sense of deepening of knowledge. I think there's a lot of work being done with nakshatras these days, and I think it's high time that that's happened. But with a lot of astrologers out there. I know Eve James Mendoza's doing a lot of good work with nakshatras. So is Dr. Arjun Pai. So is Kapil Raj. So many astrologers focusing on nakshatras more, and I like seeing that. Does Atmakaraka in Pisces Navamsha make one get moksha, or does that? There's usually never one particular planet that makes a person get moksha. Several planets in combination. Okay. Everybody eventually gets moksha. It's just not necessarily in this lifetime, right? Okay, let's wait for some more questions. Again, this isn't about questions about your chart, okay? If you want to do that, you would need to schedule a consultation with me. If you want to schedule a consultation, there's a little I up in the right-hand corner of this video, or there should be, and you can click on that particular link, and it will take you to my astrological services page where you can schedule the astrological service of your choice, and I'll send you an invoice to pay for it, okay? I have to be clear with that, because then otherwise people think they're getting it for free, right? Which actually, it's not that I'm not a charitable person, but actually there's no such thing as a free consultation, because actually it ends up being the astrologer that pays to do the consultation for somebody, okay? And it costs us money to do that, actually. Let's see what else we've got here. Okay. Prediction about Donald Trump this year. I'd rather not, you know? Why? You know, it's just things that are annoying about that. You just ignore things that are annoying, right? Any technique or personal theory that I'm personally exploring. I am doing a lot of deep research in terms of ways to qualify whether a planet in a nakshatra, whether the nakshatra will yield more difficult results, or whether it will yield more of its positive results. And I've got a good system set up for that now, but I'm wanting to improve upon it before I shift to releasing that to people in general. Somebody said, what do the numbers 3, 5, 9, 11 on top of each other in 4th house Scorpio? Those are house cusps, right? A lot of us, if you're using Kala, a lot of us work with house cusps. I use house cusps especially because you can do house cusp nakshatras, okay? Okay, let's see. All right, let's see some of the other questions that are here. Somebody said something, Saturn and Jupiter seem to be very close. They're actually not. They're into Saturn's in Sagittarius. Well, you know, depends on which system you use, right? But they're 2 signs apart from each other. What about Mars and Venus connection in all divisional charts and woman's chart? A lot of passion. That's one thing it can mean, but that's just a vast generalization. You need to look at the entire horoscope. It can. Somebody's saying when K2 transits a house, does it mean expertise or know-it-all regarding the house matter, or detachment? Maybe a little bit of both, but it depends on the K2 in that particular divisional chart, right? So you can't just say overall. You have to take it in context of the area of life that you're looking at, the Varga chart that you're looking at. Let's see some other questions. But again, please do not ask questions about your horoscope or somebody else's horoscope, because I'm not going to answer those, because all that it does is give a vast generalization about somebody's chart, causes them to think things about their life that may or may not happen. And so it's not, you don't do predictive work like that, right? It's like asking a doctor to take out your spleen with a spoon, right? Why would you want that to happen? Sorry, I just had to use that one. Okay. When did my love for astrology start and why? Okay, well, why? I think it just naturally happened. Why did it? I guess what I'm answering is, why did I fall in love with astrology? It just naturally happened. I think I must have done this before or something. When did my love for astrology start? Probably a good 36 years ago or so. What is my favorite nakshatra and why? It depends upon which particular week I'm in and what it's bringing to the surface. I don't think I especially have a favorite. It just depends on the time. Somebody says, what are bhava cusps? Bhava cusps, and it's not only with KP. What bhava cusps are a specific degree point within a particular sign. Okay? Western astrology and Vedic astrology deal with it differently. With Western astrology, you can have the 9th house cusp, let's say here, and the 10th house cusp, say here, and the area between those is the 9th and the 10th. It doesn't work that way, at least with the system that I use for Vedic astrology. You would say instead, for instance, if Sagittarius held the 9th cusp in it, you would say the 9th cusp is conjunct Sagittarius. It's a more defined way to get precision in terms of astrological interpretations. And it's not only specific to KP. What is my favorite nakshatra this week, though? Let's see. What is my favorite nakshatra this week? I've been really into Chitra nakshatra lately. Okay? I've been really into Chitra nakshatra lately. I wouldn't say, somebody's asking, is there any such thing as Paravatarna yoga for nakshatra? With nakshatras, you're looking at a whole different ballgame. What nakshatras indicate is how an individual grows something. They're not like rashis. It's a completely different concept. That's probably the best way I can answer that. Somebody might be working with a technique that does that, but you know, I would say you would have a harder time getting accuracy because nakshatras are a lot more mysterious. What is the possible combination to attain fame? Work, 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 and more hard work, and to look super attractive and to put yourself out in public quite often. But I don't think that was the answer that you were looking for, right? There are so many different things. I can't just tell you one thing. It's like there are so many different combinations that can bring fame, right? Like, you know, perchance, but see, if I say this, I don't want you thinking, oh, I've got that, I'm going to be famous, right? Strong Mars in the chart and maybe the Atmakarika and Dhanishta nakshatra is one thing that can create it, but you know, it doesn't mean that that will create it, right? There's just so many different combinations. Okay, you can't do cookbook astrology. That's one thing I want to say to people, because people quite often get caught up in wanting to do quick, easy astrology that takes like 5 minutes to do and is going to be 100% accurate. Doesn't work that way. You got to do stuff that takes you a really long time if you want things that are going to be accurate. Okay. Somebody's asking if I read any case studies lately. I very seldom read case studies. Yeah, I just tend to look at things myself, and sometimes things will pop to the surface, but those things are private and they're specific to individuals I've done consultations for, so I probably won't go into that. Is Venus Dasha good for Taurus people? It's not if they've got a debilitated Venus. But it might be in another area of their life, because Venus can be debilitated in the Rashi chart and it might be exalted in the Dashamsha chart and rule the 10th house, right? Okay. But I see what you're saying, but you can't space it, but it's because Venus is the 6th lord. It would be the 1st and the 6th lord. Well, you can't just say straight across the board it's going to be good. You have to look at a lot of different things. What is my approach to consultations if I see negative placements? Generally, I never tell something to a client unless they have asked me specifically about that particular area, and then I'm going to be honest with it, but also offer them support in terms of how to deal with it. If people are asking me to do general prediction for them, I always try to find the most supportive things. I decide on which remedy to give to people in choosing between stones, mantras, caring for specific animals, etc. And do I believe in such remedies? Here's where I'm at with remedies. Your number one remedy is God. That's your number one remedy, right? Is, you know, praying to God to help you with a particular area in your chart and help you to resolve the karma. Your number two remedy is to focus on resolving the karma. indicated by the planets. Your number 3 remedy can be using something like, mantras, gemstones, things like that. But I'm a big fan of, if you're going to give somebody a remedy, that they need to understand number 1 first, which is God is always the best remedy. They also need to understand number 2, which is the remedy doesn't take doing the work away from you. You still have to do the work. And I also want people who want a remedy to understand that the remedy isn't there to make all the problems with the planets go away. Like if you have a financial difficulty, I can't give you a remedy to make you a millionaire. It doesn't really work that way. Okay. Other than that, basically, you can look at what is strong in the chart. A strong Mars in the divisional chart that you're trying to offer assistance with can indicate a gemstone would be a good recommendation. But I don't work with gemstones in the traditional way. A strong Jupiter can be good for things like mantras, and in terms of caring for specific animals, things like that, things more service oriented, a strong Saturn would be what I would look for. Okay, let's see what else we've got. All right. Okay, so I'm waiting for some other questions. But yeah, remedies, people quite often have misconceptions about remedies, and they think that there's some magical formula that's going to make all your problems go away. It's really just there to help you to resolve the karma. It's not there to make the karma go away. Somebody else is asking, does Nicha Bhanga Raja Yoga work? Any yogas can work if the planets are set up strong enough to make that particular yoga work. No yogas work straight across the board always. You have to have planets that are doing more good than bad to make good yogas work, and you have to have planets that are doing more bad than good to make the bad yogas come into being. Okay? All right, let's see what else we've got question-wise. Please feel free to just pop your questions into the window. In the meantime, while I'm waiting for another question, if you want to schedule a consultation with me, there should be a button in the upper right-hand corner that will take you to my astrological services page. You can schedule the consultation of your choice there. Okay. What is my take on Sun-Saturn conjunction in Libra? It depends on several different factors in the horoscope. Obviously, you've got an exalted Saturn and you've got a debilitated Sun. That Saturn, if you're in Saturn-Sun dasha, is going to starve that Sun. What does that mean? In whatever Saturn rules in the chart, the individual is trying to apply their energy towards making those things work. And it can make them lose face or lose their sense of self-esteem or lose their sense of dignity. That's just a very simple interpretation. Several other things can happen in association with that. All right. Let's see what other questions we have. I'm always very big on wanting people to understand that you can't do simple astrology. So like you can't just say, oh, Sun Saturn is going to mean this all the time. It doesn't mean that. It depends on several different factors. When we surrender to God, then why do we care for astrology? Exactly. That's the number one question. Wow. But you know what? Surrendering to God is not always the easiest thing to do. Right? Praying to God can be very easy, depending, regardless of what your belief in God is, whether that's your higher self or whatever it might be. Right? Okay. Let's see some other questions here. But I'm not going to be quiet. I'll run my mouth, or maybe I'll take a drink while somebody's putting another question up. I'll probably stick around for another 10 minutes. I'm going to keep it short today because, as you can hear, my voice is a little tired because of allergies. So, somebody's saying, I want to know how to pinpoint indicators of high fertility or issues with fertility in the Rashi chart. You're not going to find anything conclusive just from the Rashi chart. You also have to look at the Saptamsha chart. So you can't just pinpoint and say with all certainty there's going to be high fertility, or with all certainty there's going to be low fertility, because you also have to look at the Saptamsha, which is what would be indicated for that. The seventh lord in the Saptamsha is important, as is Jupiter. Equally, the seventh lord in the Rashi chart is also important. Okay, but there are so many other factors to consider. Moon square Mercury, Mercury trine Saturn. You can't say which one is stronger because it depends on the strength of the planet, and it depends on the houses ruled, and it depends on the dasha period that the person's in. Okay. Somebody says, I have difficulties using Mahadashas. Transits are much simpler for me to understand them intuitively. Do you have any advice on how to start studying them? You have to think of the dashas as creating fruits, right? The Mahadasha Lord sets the ceiling for everything else. Then you have the Antardasha Lord, which is the second level, right? When the Mahadasha Lord and the Antardasha Lord have something in common, then that thing can bear fruit in a good or a bad manner, right? But if they don't, then the Mahadasha Lord has the top agenda. It rules over all the other Dasha Lords. That's just a simple concept. Advice to start studying them, you can't, that's basically the advice I would offer. Don't think of them as, oh, well, I've got Jupiter ruling my seventh lord, and I'm in my ruling my seventh, and I'm in my Jupiter dasha. But now I'm in a Saturn Antardasha, and Saturn rules my third. So something's coming up with my sibling. It's not going to happen in that way unless Jupiter also has that particular agenda, right? They have to share an agenda. Then those things come to fruition. All right. How do we interpret, I'm going to say, Somya planets exalted in Dushtana houses? Well, that planet makes things happen, right? It will happen in a gentle manner. The individual will probably love the challenge, right? But there may be some loss or sacrifice required. The Dushtana houses, on some levels, they also have their good qualities too. Okay, so you have to look at that. So you'd also have to look at the planet that rules the Dushtana house too. If that planet is exalted, then there's going to be a lot of powerful things happening, right? Okay. So there are a lot of ways, you can interpret that. So basically, it depends on what planets are being conjunct. Back to the thing about benefics in Dushtana houses, what planets are conjuncting it, what houses those planets rule. All those different things go into the interpretation. But let's say you have a gentle planet ruling relationships, right? And that planet is in the 12th house, and that planet is strong, and the 12th lord is strong. Well, the person may make sacrifices for the sake of their relationship, but they have a good relationship, right? That's a good way to understand it. How do we know what type of Jyotish to study depending on the chart? Jaimini, for example. I think that's a point of personal preference. It depends on what types of techniques that you're using. Some techniques work better with Jaimini, like predicting number of children, predicting what type of job somebody is going to do. Those are things that work better with Jaimini, right? There are techniques, I use a technique that combines Jaimini techniques with Vimshottari Dasha, and that seems to work really, really well, right? But people develop techniques for different things, and so there's no straight across the board answer, right? But you definitely would do better if you're wanting to understand psychological things that are happening for somebody, gravitating towards Vimshottari Dasha, because that's a nakshatra-based dasha, okay? Let's see what else we've got here. Okay, let's see some other questions that are easy to answer, so to speak. Okay, I may scroll up because I'm not seeing any new questions. What are the houses to look for a career in writing? The third, the fifth, those are the houses, right? But you also want to see good Rashi aspects between Jupiter and the moon. So if you take the sign that the Atmakaraka is in, and you look at the second and the third and the fifth from that, and if you've got Jupiter and moon in those, that's a potential good combination for writing. But if those planets are weak, it's not going to come to fruition as easily. If the Atmakaraka is in an even sign, then you have to read the chart backwards. okay? But it's a bit more in depth than that. How can you see moksha in a chart? One good thing that points in that direction, there's a particular technique for finding the Ishta Devata. And if Ketu ends up being involved in that quite a lot and is the prominent planet that indicates the person's Ishta Devata, and if Ketu is receiving only benefic Rashi aspects, then there's a good chance for liberation in this lifetime. That's a Jaimini technique. Okay. Why do malefics do well in houses such as 3rd, 6th, and the 11th? Because they're used to challenges. They like challenges, and those are the challenging houses. Okay. Let's see some other questions. Another 3 or 4 minutes. I'm keeping it short today because my throat is really tired and have a bit of a busy afternoon. But I just wanted to pop on, say hello to everybody because I know it's a holiday weekend. Let's see some other questions, though. Okay, somebody's saying, I wonder how we explain Rahu to be exalted in Gemini Ardra Nakshatra, as in this position, Rahu in D9 chart will be in Sagittarius sign. Different people have different ways of judging strengths of planets, first of all. In terms of Rahu, I don't see Rahu and Ketu as being exalted or debilitated anywhere because they don't have a physical presence. They only have a physical representation in terms of eclipses. So Rahu and Ketu are not the same as the other planets. They are given the status of grahas, but I don't see them as being able to be exalted or debilitated. However, I have found in most instances they tend to work really well in Scorpio and Taurus, with Ketu in Scorpio and Rahu in Taurus. Okay, but I would never judge Rahu and Ketu as being exalted. I would judge their dispositors as being exalted, and that influence is going to carry over to Rahu and Ketu. Okay. Right, let's see what other questions we have. Okay, people are beginning to ask questions that I really know are questions you're asking about your own particular horoscope. And I'm not going to answer those, right? I'm not going to name specific people because you're just curious and I can understand that, but I'm not going to go into that. What do I say when Rahu and Ketu are in each other's dispositors? There's going to be a very powerful Rahu Dasha and a very powerful Ketu Dasha. So during Rahu Dasha, with Rahu being conjunct Ketu's Lord, there will be a very powerful integration process going on with that which is connected to Ketu. Right, with Ketu's Lord, with Ketu's position in the chart. There will be a very powerful integration process. And with Ketu conjunct Rahu's Lord, it will make things perhaps on many levels seem a little bit disconcerting, but there will still be a very powerful integration process. What you have with that is basically, if Rahu's Lord is with Ketu, Ketu's job is to integrate the experiences Rahu's going through on some levels, right? And Rahu's job is to bring about those experiences so that Ketu can speed up its integration process in association with it. So when the lords of those planets switch signs, it's a very powerful period, and it can be difficult or it can be easy dependent upon the dignity of Ketu and Rahu's dispositors. If their dispositors are strong across the board, there's going to be a lot of very powerful progress during those periods, but it doesn't necessarily mean there's not going to be some difficulty. By progress, I mean spiritual progress. Okay? Let's see what else we've got. Okay, let's see what else we've got here. A question. So take a few more questions if people want to ask questions. We've had a lot of people appear, so maybe I'll hang out for another 10 minutes or so. Okay, somebody is, let's see. Very good. Somebody said the best remedy, in my opinion, can be found by searching within. And that is what I believe in too. Quite often I find people, because I get this feedback from people think that remedies are going to make it so they don't have to do the work. It doesn't work like that, okay? All right. Trans-Saturnian planets. I think you might mean Neptune and Pluto and Uranus. I occasionally do, but I don't find as many needs to do that. I like looking at that occasionally, yeah, especially the nakshatras that they're in. Okay, somebody's saying, what dasha, in my opinion, is the most positive? It does, Jupiter, Moon, or Venus, it doesn't really work like that. I'll explain to you, right? Because, you know, people quite often will look at their Jupiter in the Rashi chart. They'll go, I've got an exalted Jupiter. That means that everything's going to be really good during my Jupiter dasha. Well, in another area of life, let's say Jupiter rules the 10th in their Dashamsha chart and it's debilitated, right? Well, career's not going to go that well. So you can't say straight across the board that some dasha is going to be really good and another dasha is going to be really bad, because life has all its ups and downs, right? Sometimes people tend to think that some magical period will come along in their life and they'll hit a dasha period where everything will be really good. And it doesn't work like that, because basically every period of life has challenges. A planet can be strong in one area, like let's say the Rashi chart. Well, what is the Rashi chart? The Rashi chart is the life path of the individual. As the individual is going about their life, what are they focusing on at that particular time? How are they getting to know themselves in their life? Are they getting to know themselves through relationships? If the 7th Lord is active in the Rashi chart, are they getting to know themselves through career? If the 10th Lord is active in the Rashi chart, that's generally how the Rashi chart works. So if the Dasha Lord rules one of those things and it's exalted, the individual may feel overall like that area of their life is going well in terms of their life path, but they still may be encountering difficulties if that planet is debilitated, like say in the Dashamsha chart, right? I'm having a hard time with career, but overall during my Jupiter Dasha, I was happy with the way that developed. That's kind of how you have to understand it. I think everybody can't wait to be over their Rahu Dasha. Okay, it's just a difficult part of life, but it's one of the most rewarding parts of life. Okay. Somebody says, sometimes people wonder why nothing changed during a Dasha. Trust me, if it didn't, that's not bad. Yeah, that's true. It's not bad if something didn't change during a Dasha. Yep. All right, let's see some other questions. May take 1, 2, maybe 3 more. And then we'll say goodbye for the day. Okay, I'm not going to do these K2 Moon, Scorpio, House 9, and D9 things and things like that, because people are just trying to, you may not be, right, but it begins to seem like people are asking me to interpret their chart for them. And again, I'll use the same analogy I use. Would you go to a surgeon and go, I'm having problems with my spleen. I know you only have a spoon available, but can you take my spleen out with the spoon? Right? You're asking me to read your chart for you based upon 2 or 3 factors, and it doesn't really work that way. I look at several different Vargas based upon what I'm seeing. Okay, one thing that K2 Moon tends to create on a certain level is an individual kind of ignoring their emotions or having to put their emotions all to one side rather than facing their emotions. If it's in the 9th, well, it depends on what the moon rules on the Navamsha chart, and it depends on the dignity of the moon, because if the moon is in early Scorpio, it might be debilitated, but if it's in later Scorpio, it may not be quite so bad. And it depends on the degree that the moon's in that particular Varga chart. So many different things. So many different things, okay? Rahu Dasha will not always make you get married, but it is noted for creating both marriages and children. But it doesn't always work that way, okay? But there's a good potential for that to happen. Okay. Let's see what other questions we have here. You focus on, somebody's asking, do you focus on the Rashi or Nakshatra when interpreting Vargas? You can focus on both, and you can pay attention to the Atmakaraka and the Varga charts, but that's not the only thing you should focus on. Okay? Do I look at synastry whilst doing relationship consultations? It's on a per case basis. It depends upon the couple and what they're actually asking for. Somebody just put down Purva Ashadha Nakshatra. I don't know what you mean. You just said Purva Ashadha Nakshatra. Okay, so somebody says Lajatadi Avasta, how much will it impact a dasha? Like Saturn in 11th, but Sushupti. That's not, Saturn in the 11th is not a Lajatadi Avasta necessarily. Lajatadi Avastas are something different. But Lajatadi Avastas tend to show the level of fulfillment that we get from something or the lack of fulfillment that we get from something. Okay? All right, I think we can do one more. What alignments have you noticed for sarcasm in a good way? All the alignments that I have in my chart. I'm kidding. All right. Are eclipses more powerful when other planets are transiting the eclipse points? Most definitely. Most definitely. Okay. Venus in Purva Ashadha Nakshatra is going to depend on Venus's, like you can have Venus in Purva Ashadha Nakshatra in a divisional chart too, and Venus might be debilitated because a good way, one way, I should say, because there are more than one way to do things like this, right? One way to read nakshatras in divisional charts is to take the placement of the planet from the Rashi chart in terms of its nakshatra and keep the same nakshatra position in the divisional chart. I try to be the king of sarcasm. Sarcasm is a good sense of humor. I spent a lot of time in New York State. Okay, so, you know, can't help it. You can take the person out of New York, but you can't take the New York out of the person. All right, one last question. Who's going to pop it up on the screen? While I'm waiting for that, again, I'll remind you about my astrological services page where you can schedule an astrological consultation with me. Also, those of you who like watching my videos, I just did a full moon video. You can look on my channel for it. Let's see one last question, and then it's time to move on. Okay, so let's see if we've got another question here that is one that I know what the person might be asking, which isn't a criticism. I ask questions too sometimes, and you just type things in the window quickly because you want to make sure people get to it. Okay, if I'm not finding one that I really want to go into at this particular time, I'll give another second. Ketu dispositor and Rahu dispositor conjunct in a Drishtana. That's a good question. Again, I will preface it by saying it depends on the area of life, but that individual will most likely go through a lot of hardship in their life because of both the karmic indicators, the lords of those being conjunct in a Drishtana house, right? Can create a lot of difficulties. But it also depends on the house position from Rahu and Ketu themselves. So if it's on a trine from Ketu and Rahu, that can ease it a little bit. Okay. All right. We're going to call this a day for today. And again, please remember my astrological services page. You know, it's the way I have to remind people about it, you know. And that's, I am doing blatant self-promotion, right? But, you know, it's my job. Okay. So, you know, please feel free to visit my services page. It's always a pleasure coming on and doing this. You guys ask a lot of really great questions, and I shall see you, I'm sure, within a week. I just had a lot of people going, oh, you always do it when I'm not awake. So I thought I'd come on a little bit later today. All right. Take care, everybody, and do have a very wonderful weekend. Bye now.